image generation. It let millions of people generate fantastical images of literally anything they could imagine. Studio Ghibli versions of your family, pictures of the Pope dripped out in Balenciaga, literally anything you could imagine you could create. Kicked off the whole AI art movement. And they just announced that they're building full-body medical scanners, deploying them inside Mid-Journey branded spas with hot tubs and saunas, of course, and cold plunges. It'll be in Union Square and San Francisco, the disposable income capitals of the world. So I, for context, last used Midjourney to do a superhero version of my boss for a company birthday card, and now they're generating superhero versions of real people from the inside. Kind of feels like a full circle moment. So this is happening as the entire AI industry is basically trying to prove that it's not just a pile of increasingly cheap models that can kind of be swapped out for each other. They don't want it to be seen as productivity tools that are commodities like oil. Any one gas station is as good as the next, as long as the price is equal. Health is where AI can prove that it actually matters in a human civilization scale way. Anthropic's mythos just matched human scientists on drug design. DeepMind's AlphaFold solved protein folding and it won a Nobel Prize. And now Midjourney wants in on this. Scan your body and catch what your doctor missed. So if any of this works, AI stops being a chatbot and starts being something that found a tumor early. This is a completely different valuation and kind of the final form of the AI dream. Whenever we talk about AI and everything that it could possibly do in the biggest sense, it's always about curing cancer, curing diseases. Now, Midjourney has no outside investors and no IPO plan, but the rest of the industry is watching because this is the kind of move that could make $1 trillion valuation for a company that was previously mainly used for AI headshots and surreal gamer art. David Holtz, who's Midjourney's CEO, he unveiled this yesterday and he called it a little weird and a little crazy, but also spectacular and filled with hope, which is a very quirky way of describing asking people to partially submerge themselves in a pool of water surrounded by basically 9,000 ultrasound sensors so that a computer can build a 3D map of their entire body in 60 seconds. What they're trying to do, if that wasn't clear. This scanner is going to use no radiation, so unlike CT scans or X-rays, it's going to map muscle, fat, bone, and organs all using ultrasound from every angle simultaneously. Holtz says that it'll be comparable to MRI quality, which currently costs hospitals $1 to $3 million per machine and requires specialized facilities. His version, he says, will go in a spa next to the sauna. He described this in a very surreal Midjourney kind of way, like some image generation prompt. He said, pools of golden light will softly scan your body. That is the actual marketing copy. I'm going to try to generate that on Midjourney after this just to see what it'll actually look like. His hardware background, Holtz's hardware background, makes this all make a little bit more sense. Before Midjourney, founded a hand tracking sensor company called Leap Motion. So he's done consumer hardware before. He's familiar with tiny sensors. The scanner that they're using is built in partnership with Butterfly Network, which is a medical device company whose ultrasound on chip technology is already FDA cleared for other uses. So this deal could be worth up to $74 million over 5 years. The scale that they are targeting is pretty crazy. But then again, I feel like we've become so desensitized to big numbers. So they're looking at 50,000 scanners over 6 years and 1 billion scans per month by 2031. Holtz says the tech could prevent 30% of all deaths and cut healthcare costs by 50%. These are big expectations. Now, those numbers could just be visionary or they could be delusional. Don't really know which one or how we're really going to judge this. It all still feels very pie in the sky. I think the biggest part of this is this massive data collection play. Right now, they're entering a pretty ripe field of demand for this because we're in this medical aesthetics era where everybody wants to inject anything that they can get their hands on if it promises to prolong their lives. For Midjourney, this is a windfall of data. Billion monthly body scans would be the largest medical imaging data set in human history, and Midjourney, at the end of the day, is an AI company. They know what you do with the largest data set in history. You train models on it. Say it with me now. Holtz says that we're not even using any AI in this yet. That is just today. The spa is what's going to make the behavior normal, and then the scan history makes the product something that you keep coming back for. You have your data set. This is a product that we're already starting to see with stuff like function and superpower. You datafy your health. Midjourney is not the only AI company that's expanding beyond software. Musk built an entire city and branded an IPO as a cultural event. OpenAI is opening pop-up retail stores. Meta is selling its glasses as fashion accessories. These are really all part of the lifestyleization of tech companies. It's important for their longevity because when your model is a commodity that anyone can replicate, it's potentially something, a future that we're coming up on. The thing that actually keeps your customers is the age-old tale of the experience around it, the brand. You can potentially switch AI image generators in 5 seconds, but if your monthly spa visit to the Midjourney AI body scan lab is something you depend on, you're not going to be able to switch that in the same way. And Midjourney is one company betting that the future of AI isn't just the model, but the universe that you build around it. Now, the skeptics have ready-made arguments. The prototype currently takes 20 minutes, not 60 seconds. About a dozen people have been scanned. There's no independent doctor that's verified the results, and the risk is not just that it misses something, but that it finds too much, like harmless blobs or weird shadows that send people into months of follow-up testing and anxiety spirals over something that was never going to hurt them. It's a wellness play dressed up as a medical one, or a medical one dressed up as a wellness play, depending on how generous you're feeling. For now, this is being branded somewhere between cryotherapy and an Equinox health assessment, with the twist, which is that they're aiming to collect massive amounts of real human data. All I know is we've entered the Black Mirror episode where the Kardashians are going to be brand ambassadors of the AI body scanning immersion tank, and I just don't think I'm ready for it, but hey.
So a Google software engineer just got arrested for using confidential company data to make $1.2 million on Polymarket instead of just asking for a raise. He's 36, Italian, lives in Switzerland, and works on Google's security team, which sounds like a great dating profile, but actually just the start of a rap sheet. His role in security makes the irony of it all somehow better. He bet on who would be the most searched person on Google in 2025. He breached Google's own security to make money off of it. You can't make this stuff up. At the time he placed the bet, Polymarket gave his pick a near zero chance. There's a singer called David that he chose as the most Googled person. It's a tough story if you want to Google it. Basically free money if you knew the answer. That is how Polymarket economics work. The less likely an outcome seems, the more money you make if it turns out to be right. So if everyone else thinks David has basically no chance of being Google's most searched person of the year, the payout is enormous. But if you already know the answer, it's not a risky bet anymore. And this guy worked at Google, so he already knew the answer. He had access to the internal tools that track what everyone on Earth is searching for, so he placed the bet, waited for Google to announce its year-end search results in December, collected his bounty, $1.2 million, then deleted the username Alpha Raccoon from his Polymarket account, moved the crypto to a different wallet, and thought he got away with it. He did not. The raccoon was smoked out. The feds charged him with commodities fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering. Google immediately put him on leave and said that they cooperated. I don't think he's going to be able to work on security from jail. His bond is $2.25 million, and this is the second federal insider trading case on Polymarket this year. My immediate question was how they caught him. So he wasn't exactly subtle. Alpha Raccoon went 22 for 23 on Google-related bets. A Meta engineer flagged the wallet publicly, called it out on social media. Polymarket's own community account tweeted on December 4th, 1.15 million profit in 24 hours trading Google search markets. Who is Alpha Raccoon? The traders were literally following his bets. When asked what to bet on, one user posted check Alpha Raccoon account, so he was not exactly low-key about his operation. Random people on the internet started to figure him out before the FBI did. His win rate was so statistically impossible, it was basically a confession. He placed 16 bets over 2 months, risked $2.7 million total. This kind of case is not isolated. In April, there was an Army Master Sergeant who was charged for using classified intelligence about the U.S. military operation to capture Maduro to make $400,000 on Polymarket. You would think that these cases are going to be cautionary tales, but I do have a feeling we'll see more of these people with specialized knowledge, even in the Army, where you would think that they have to have integrity. They're tempted. They're tempted because you can monetize information, which is what these prediction markets are all about. Here's the thing. Google said that the data he used wasn't some top secret internal system. It was actually a tool available to all employees. So any one of their 180,000 employees could have done the same thing. What this really highlights to me is that companies, the world isn't prepared for systems that let employees, people monetize information. There's never been this kind of massive profit incentive. You used to be a Google employee sitting on this information. The worst thing that you could do is tell your friends over drinks. Systems to filter this behavior out aren't there. Not on Google's side, not on the military side. side, and certainly not on Polymarket's side. Polymarket doesn't check whether you work at the company whose data you're betting on. There's no disclosure requirement. There's no conflict of interest form. You just make an account, pick a username like Alpha Raccoon, and start winning or losing money. The Senate has already banned its own members from using these platforms. Arizona charged 20 people over prediction market betting. Soldiers are betting on classified military raids. It's time for a system. Nobody quite knows what it is yet. That is the problem. Prediction markets are now doing roughly $1 billion a day in trading volume, and the basic insider trading rulebook still has not caught up. If there's one thing these stories remind us of, it is the enduring human ability to find loopholes in any situation.
Snapchat is getting torn apart on the internet because they just launched $2,200 glasses. The stock dropped while the CEO was wearing them on CNBC. That's not an embarrassing way to get told that your product looks terrible. I genuinely don't know what it is. Here's the thing. Smart glasses are actually kind of having a moment right now. Meta's Ray-Bans are selling well. Google is coming back with Android XR glasses through Warby Parker and Samsung. Apple is reportedly building AR glasses for 2027. The market, finally real. And Snap was technically early to this. They launched the original spectacles in 2016 before any of these companies were in the game. This is Snap's 5th attempt at making glasses happen, which I guess fooled me 5 times. Shame on everyone involved. The original spectacles Snap sold, insane alliteration, were $130 in 2016, and they sold them out of vending machines. Nobody bought them. And they wrote off nearly $40 million in unsold inventory. Spectacles 2 came in 2018, $200. They added water resistance. Still flop. Spectacles 3, 2019, at $380. 3D effects. More fashion forward, flopped. 4th version in 2021, they didn't even bother selling to consumers. It was developer only, $1,200 a year to rent. This is the definition of insanity, right? Each generation was more expensive, more ambitious than the last, and none of them caught on. Snap looked at that again and again and said, what if we did this another time, but more expensive? Evan Spiegel, Snap CEO, Miranda Kerr's husband, went on CNBC today and said with a completely straight face, almost 20 years since the launch of the iPhone, people are ready to think about computing differently, which may be true, but I'm not sure that the differently people had in mind was paying $2,200 to look like you're about to both hit the ski slopes and watch a 3D movie at the same time. The glasses are called Spec. They have AI integrations, including Claude Code and OpenAI and Gemini. You can see directions and translations and virtual objects floating in front of you. It would make me very nauseous. Battery lasts 4 hours. The stock was dropping in real time while he was wearing the product on live television. Spiegel is joining the wearables train that Meta and Apple are on, but the economics are not in his favor. Meta's Ray-Ban smart glasses go for $299, and they own about 75 to 80% of the smart glasses market. These are the only ones that are actually selling. Snap Specs land at $21.95, which is 7 times the price of the Meta glasses that are actually popular. Snap has spent now over $3 billion on AR R&D over the last 11 years. For a company worth $14 billion, that's over 20% of their entire market cap poured into a product category that has literally never worked for them. This was once a $130 billion company. Today, it is worth a mere $14 billion. The stock is trading between $5 and $7. Revenue was about $6 billion last year, and they're still losing money. Activist investors pushed for a radical overhaul earlier this year. Snap is bleeding users to TikTok and Meta. Advertising is still basically their entire business. Their answer to all of that is a $2,200 pair of glasses in a market where Meta already sells a better looking product for a fraction of the price. Spiegel is betting that people are so sick of looking at their phones that they'll pay whatever amount of money to look at something else instead. This is a bold thesis when most people I know won't spend $2,200 on rent. The deposit is $200 and they ship this fall, US, UK, and France. If Snap wants to send me a pair, I will see if it changes my mind. Maybe, just maybe, 5th time is the charm. Lots of ugly products have gotten popular before, take Labubu's or Crocs. But for $2,200 and a 4-hour battery, I'm not quite sure how far we're going to get with these. Still, I am rooting for them the way that you root for the kid who keeps signing up for the talent show. Even the richest man on earth loses in court sometimes. Today we found out Elon Musk took biggest loser in his trial against OpenAI, although nobody really won after getting their names dragged through the mud for 3 weeks. After 3 weeks of testimony, 9 jurors deliberated for less than 2 hours and they unanimously rejected every single one of Elon Musk's claims. There were just 2 remaining from the original 26. If you read the book 12 Angry Men in middle school, this was not that at all. Everyone was in agreement. There was no juror number 3. And it's not even on the merits that they were all in agreement. The real issue here was about Elon's timing. They decided he waited too long to sue. There were 3 years of public complaints, 2 years of building a case. He filed his 26 claims, dropped 24 the night before the trial. A lot of these were like fraud-related claims. The 2 that were left got killed in 2 hours because the jury agreed that Elon knew exactly what OpenAI was doing for years before he sued and didn't do anything about it until they were worth hundreds of billions of dollars on the doorstep of an IPO. Now, you can litigate Sam Altman's character or Greg Brockman's diary. Timing speaks for itself. The AI trial of the century ended on a technicality because of course it would. If you've been watching my channel, you know something about this trial, which unfolded over the last few weeks. But in case you missed it, quick recap. Musk was on the stand calling employees jackasses. He admitted he used OpenAI's tech to build Grok to courtroom gasps. The judge called him out for posting about the trial on X during the trial. His baby mama, Siobhan Zillis, she testified about texting Musk updates from inside of OpenAI's board while hiding that he was the father of her twins. Greg Brockman said that Musk ripped the painting off the wall, said he thought Musk was going to hit him. He did an Elon Musk impression, which was pretty good. Mira Murati, formerly of OpenAI, called Sam Altman deceptive, said he was creating chaos. Altman also revealed that Musk wanted 90% of OpenAI when he was asked what happens if he dies. If he dies, which is a big if. I guess if you're Elon Musk, you gotta imagine that he has something up his sleeve where he gets frozen for 1,000,000 years. Musk said that control would pass to his children, and then he skipped his own closing arguments to fly to China with Trump. So it was as full as a season of Succession with as many eccentric billionaires and confusing empire-building plans, and the jury decided in under 2 hours that none of it matters because Musk filed too late. He started publicly complaining about OpenAI in 2020. He didn't sue until 2024. California law says you have 3 years to sue over a charity or nonprofit that you think was stolen. That's 4 years since Musk took up the issue. Math doesn't work. Musk posted on X that the ruling was a, quote, terrible precedent. He said the judge handed out a free license to loot charities if you can keep the looting quiet for a few years, which isn't an entirely accurate reading of what happened because OpenAI certainly wasn't quiet about becoming a for-profit company. He said that he's appealing, but a Syracuse law professor said that appeals on statute of limitation decisions are extremely rare because it's usually a pretty clear rule, not really open to interpretation. What the jury found is just that he took too long. I don't know if that's going to be a community note on X or what. I think what's important is that nobody really won this trial. Although Musk lost the case, Altman didn't win the argument, so to speak. 5 witnesses called Altman a liar on the stand. His own former CTO said he was deceptive, an agent of chaos. Brockman's personal journal or diary, whatever you want to call it, from the nonprofit era had the entry, financially, what will take me to $1 billion, which is just phrasing I love. It's like the most earnest and innocent phrasing of the most insanely grandiose vision of power. Brockman's stake is now worth $30 billion, so he properly manifested. I'm actually going to write that in my diary tonight. We'll see what happens. Altman says that he has no direct equity in OpenAI, but he does have $2 billion in stakes in companies that do business with it. In the circular AI economy, that's basically like stakes in OpenAI. Lots of information is now on the public record that OpenAI would prefer was not. The lawyer for OpenAI told the press after the verdict, "We are grateful and we're going to get back to our mission ensuring artificial general intelligence benefits all of humanity," which is a statement that Musk was inherently arguing with in this case, but he failed. The jury didn't rule on that, even though that was talked about for most of the past 3 weeks. The jury ruled on whether Musk filed his paperwork on time, so that the big question at the center of this trial is still unanswered. A much more interesting question, which was whether a nonprofit can become a for-profit and make its founders billionaires while still claiming to serve humanity. The jury didn't approach that. They just said that Musk was too late to ask it. An investor who backed SpaceX put it quite perfectly. He said the good news is that people hate both of them. The New York Times ran a piece tonight, the night of the verdict, that declared the verdict the start of a long, hot AI summer. The argument was that the AI juggernaut that's bearing down on the world, from data centers to AI psychosis, affecting everything suddenly all at once, it's just lost one of its only legal obstacles, at least for OpenAI. Congress isn't regulating it. The White House is still sort of arguing with itself about it and what it's going to do about AI as an industry. The courts just cleared OpenAI to go public at $1 trillion, essentially. The AI industry has green lights from every party that matters, even while the administration that's avowedly been anti-AI regulation saw the dangers of Anthropic's new Mythos model to break the world, and it's trying to now rein it in with, dare I say, regulation. But really, the biggest opposition to AI itself is people who don't want data centers in their town. Even Elon wasn't really fighting a battle about whether AI should be used for the good of humanity, because as the owner of a for-profit AI company about to enter the public markets, he was arguably just mad that he wasn't part of the profit part of OpenAI. So we got 3 weeks of testimony in less than 2 hours. The jury came back. Musk lost on the clock, not the merits of this case, which should be your reminder to file your taxes and paperwork on time. Next up, we have OpenAI and SpaceX's IPOs, Anthropic's IPO as well. The AI trial of the century is over. AI summer is just starting. White boy summer be damned. Bernie Sanders and the Trump White House just basically agreed on something, which means we're officially in the weirdest possible timeline. Sanders published an op-ed this past week in the New York Times saying that the public should own half of the big AI companies. Now, the same week, on the other side of the Wall Street Journal reported that Trump administration officials are discussing taking government financial stakes in the AI industry. They want in on the IPO season. A Democratic socialist and the most deregulatory White House in history walked into a bar and arrived at the same conclusion, which is that these AI companies are too powerful and too consequential to be fully private. They're just taking very different routes to get there. Very different, to be clear. Bernie's argument is wealth redistribution. The idea that when something this valuable as AI, gets created, the benefits can't flow only to a couple thousand people in San Francisco who can now buy mansions in all cash deals at double the asking price. These AI models were trained on the entire internet. He's saying your tweets, your photos, your writing, your data, the research that made them possible was also funded by taxpayers through government grants and public universities for decades. AI depends on its data, human knowledge. So why should the rest of humanity not get a cut? When a company takes all of that publicly created data, publicly funded research, publicly subsidized hardware, you get it. They package this into a product and file to go public at $1 trillion. The public should get a share. That is what Bernie is saying. How he's proposing we go about this has some precedent. Alaska's oil dividend, for example, sends every resident a check every year just for living there. Last year, it was about $1,700 per person. The fund behind it is worth $80 billion. It's built from the state's oil revenue. Now, imagine that model is applied to AI companies worth trillions. Every American would get an annual dividend, like a STEMI, but better. A check that shows up just because your data, your tax dollars, your internet activity all funneled into build the most valuable technology on earth. You didn't write the code, you didn't send your resume to Anthropic, you wrote the Reddit posts it was trained on. It's Bernie's pitch. You are already an investor, even though it's not in your Robinhood portfolio yet, so you should be treated like one. So Bernie's proposal is aggressive. He wants a one-time 50% stock tax on major AI companies paid in equity into a sovereign wealth fund. These companies owe the public half of themselves. That's Bernie's version. Now, the Trump side is coming at it from a very different angle, which is national security. Their argument has nothing to do with fairness and equality and justice, everything to do with power and leverage. AI is a strategic asset for the government, so whoever controls the most powerful AI controls the future of defense, intelligence, cybersecurity, economic dominance, what have you. Putin has said similar things. You can't let something that important sit entirely in private hands, though, is what the Trump administration is reportedly saying. And when a private CEO can make decisions that override state power, then it starts getting serious for governments. Anthropic didn't refuse national security work entirely, but it did refuse to remove red lines around mass domestic surveillance and fully autonomous weapons. So that could be the kind of moment that makes Washington question where a private CEO's veto power over state power ends. The government wants leverage. The most direct form of leverage is ownership. Is this a slippery slope? Absolutely. And then there's a twist that makes this more interesting. So this idea may not have even started in Congress or the White House. It may have started in Silicon Valley. Sam Altman has reportedly been pitching a version of this for months. OpenAI floated a, quote, public wealth fund that would let people without stock market money benefit from AI gains, which is either very noble or strategic or some sort of regulatory jujitsu. Because if you think about what Altman is doing, if Washington is coming for you anyway, the smartest move might be to just invite them onto the cap table before they invite themselves on friendly terms that you can write yourself instead of having them written for you. Altman might be playing 4D chess. Bernie's version is you owe the public half. Altman's version is we'll donate a slice before someone makes us hand over the pie. Looks like the Trump administration might be fighting or exploring it. For the AI companies, government equity is not simply a tax. It could also be a blessing, because if the US government owns a piece of you, it becomes harder for the US government to let you fail. The blessing is also a trap. If the government profits when AI companies win, it has every reason to look the other way when they cut corners, which is a conflict of interest on a trillion-dollar scale. So Bernie and the Trump administration both seem to get a somewhat similar answer, that the AI industry can't fully be public. They've just shown their work in very different ways. Power to the people or power to the government. The question now is whether we are watching the birth of public ownership and industrial policy around AI that, dare I say, benefits the public good, or whether the government is just trying to buy a ticket onto the multi-trillion-dollar AI rocket ship before it takes off, or maintain control in systems that have potential for mass surveillance, defense systems. Two roads diverged, two very different ways for the government to deal with the meteoric and sudden rise of a new institution in society, which is AI. So the internet is freaking out because Polymarket was reportedly paying college kids $3,000 a month to pretend to get rich on TikTok. They built a fake version of their own website. They misspelled the name and everything, and they had creators film themselves winning bets that never actually happened on a platform that Americans aren't even allowed to use. The videos got 140 million views. One of them was from the Wall Street Journal, which looked into what was actually happening here and found out that none of the wins were real. They published the investigation, and it's not looking great for Polymarket. So the Wall Street Journal analyzed over 1,100 videos from about 10 promoted creators between December and May. 70% of them showed a bet being placed. Not one of those bets was real. Now, across those videos, creators showed roughly $1.9 million in bets and celebrated about $900,000 in wins. Now, looking into those bets, if you'd actually placed those same bets on Polymarket, you actually would have lost $166,000. So they were showing wins where the real outcome was losses and just hoping that nobody would check their work. The dummy websites are actually pretty crazy. Polymarket built near perfect copies of its own site. One was literally spelled Polymarket with an lowercase I instead of an L, and they had creators film themselves placing trades on these fake sites. For a scam operation, this was actually pretty well done until it wasn't. So the videos look completely real unless you zoom in on the URL, which if you're scrolling TikTok and you see a college kid screaming about winning $100,000 on a prediction about Trump, you're not gonna zoom in on the URL. The whole thing staged. The website was fake, the trade was fake, the money was fake. The only winnings that were real was the couple $1,000s that these kids were making to make these ads. Now, one creator showed himself winning $100,000 after Trump supposedly said the word McDonald's in January, which is great, except Trump never said McDonald's publicly that month. He probably ordered it, but the clip was old. The bet was fabricated, and the win was fabricated. So there's 145 videos from this one guy that appear to show $410,000 in bets. Great ads, all fake. They paid Aiden Ross, who's one of the biggest streamers in the world, multiple millions of dollars to promote the platform. Now, the Wall Street Journal found Polymarket and its marketing contractor promoted at least 19 videos that talked up opportunities to use inside information and manipulate markets. So they were literally advertising insider trading as a platform feature. Creators were told not to disclose that they were being paid. Only after the Wall Street Journal started asking questions did they start adding @Polymarket Partner to their bios, which is the influencer equivalent of putting on your seatbelt after you see the cop coming. This isn't Polymarket's first rodeo with the law. Already paid a $1.4 million fine to the CFTC back in 2022 for operating an illegal, unregistered market. Politico reported that Polymarket's CMO was actually sending payments through a personal PayPal, not a corporate account, personal PayPal, over $2.5 million to more than 800 creators over 14 months. Right now, Polymarket is trying to raise a $15 billion valuation and get approved for a regulated U.S. exchange license, which is tough when you're running a campaign that literally fakes U.S. exchange operations and you get caught. So this investigation landed at quite literally the worst possible time for them. Now, Polymarket's whole pitch is radical transparency. Every trade settles on a public blockchain that anyone can audit. The markets work work because it's all verifiable. So the marketing strategy to sell that product was incredibly deceptive. Build fake websites, stage fake trades, pay people to fake getting rich, and then hide the payments. So trust the blockchain isn't a message that really aligns with this kind of growth campaign. Any publicity is good publicity may not hold here. They build fake websites to simulate fake wealth for an audience they're not even legally allowed to serve. This doesn't look great from a company that's already entangled in a lot of insider trading allegations. Polymarket is banned from letting Americans trade on their platform, and this whole campaign targeted American social media for a product that they can't even legally use. That's going to be a tough one for their legal team to unwind. Some Polymarket supporters are blaming the reporting, saying that Kalshi's investors have ties to News Corp, which is the Wall Street Journal's parent company, and Kalshi is Polymarket's number one op and competitor, which may be true, but the fake websites are verifiable. There's only so much finessing you can do with this story, and it is what it is. My bet ultimately is that Kalshi, which is regulated, they're going to come out of this the winner. So the prediction market that predicted the 2024 election evidently couldn't predict that someone was going to check up on their marketing and know the difference between an L and an I. That's a tough loss. So A24 just took $75 million from Google's AI lab. This is the studio for people who think Marvel movies are a federal crime, and they're now building AI filmmaking tools with big tech. And somewhere on Reddit, you know that there's a film bro who's very upset. Google DeepMind announced this partnership with A24. They're the cool kid film studio behind Moonlight, Marty Supreme, Backrooms. Google is sending AI researchers to sit alongside filmmakers, build tools for making movies. These are strange bedfellows, to say the least. The most artistically credible indie studio in Hollywood just started an open marriage with one of the biggest AI labs on the planet. This is what's happening and why it matters. I am tentatively calling this partnership G24. The deal works like this. Engineers from DeepMind, which is the London-based AI lab acquired by Google over a decade ago, they will embed with A24's filmmakers to build new tools and workflows for making movies. Google dropped $75 million into this venture. A24 gets access to DeepMind's research and infrastructure, which is extensive. To be clear, Google does not get access to A24's content library or data. This is not a licensing deal. It's not like Gemini will be spinning up proprietary Marty Supreme scenes. It's also a non-exclusive partnership, so both sides can date other people. A24 protects its indie identity and doesn't look like it's a sellout to Google. Google protects its options. Neither of them wants to hitch its ride to the wrong horse this early. What I think is important here is that Google has been interwoven with the arts for a while. In fact, building AI tools for creatives is kind of its competitive differentiation in AI. Where Anthropic's focus has been on enterprise, OpenAI's has been on consumer, Google has really been tilling its field in the artistic heartland of Hollywood. They've got the most comprehensive stack of products focused on generating videos, images, music, and even virtual world building, like video game style. In fact, since OpenAI shelved Sora, its video generation tool, after an internal crusade to minimize distractions, get in the revenue-generating ring with Anthropic, Google's